Hello, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the important question of where you put your reader, and that's something that's a little easier to think about in terms of crime fiction, but it applies to literary fiction, all kinds of fiction, because this is really to do with information, when it's given and how it's given to the reader, and most of storytelling is to do with decisions about when do I tell the reader this? When does the reader learn this? So let's say that there are three basic relationships between the reader and the characters in the story, or perhaps the readers and the narrator of the story. And the first is that the reader is behind them. Now, in terms of crime fiction, that would be something like the Sherlock Holmes stories. It doesn't hold true for all of them, but in some cases, Conan Doyle doesn't give the readers all the clues they need to solve the crime. Sherlock Holmes notices things that the reader isn't told about at the time they read that bit of the story, and they only get that later. Now that might seem cheating, but it means that it's not like the second type of relationship, which is more of an Agatha Christie one in Poirot or Miss Marple, in which, because it's a whodunit, the reader gets the information they need at the time they need it to be with the detective and to make the deductions that the detective does, if they're intelligent enough. Nothing's held back. So with the Sherlock Holmes, the reader is behind. With Agatha Christie, the reader is with. And then obviously there's something where the reader is ahead. And that an example of that would be The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time by Mark Haddon, where there are things that the reader knows about the world that Christopher, the narrator, doesn't. The reader is kind of wiser in some ways. They've figured things out that Christopher is moving towards. And that means the reader, in a sense, is looking at the character as if they were someone that could be judged and assessed. And often that relationship is a sort of comic one, in the sense that you see someone walking towards something they don't know they're walking towards. That can also be suspenseful, but it means that you are, in a way, looking down on that character, assessing that character, rather than being with that character, looking out of their eyes, even if, as is the case with Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, that's a first-person narrator. So with fiction generally, readers can have a different relationship with the voice that's telling the story, with your narrative voice, and that can either make them feel that they're always catching up, that narrative voice is wiser than them and is somehow explaining the world to them in a way they don't understand, or they can feel sort of down in the trenches with that voice, that you're trying to figure things out at the same time as the narrator. And this is a very contemporary kind of mode. Being with the characters, close to the characters, is very much how a lot of contemporary fiction works. Or you can feel slightly superior. You can feel as if you are looking at the characters and they are there for your amusement. And that can often seem a slightly older-fashioned way of doing it. That's the way that, say, 18th century fiction, or even Jane Austen is. We know more than Emma. In Emma, we know that she's wrong. So it's important to think that you're consistent in where your point of view is, and the way you're talking about the characters. You don't want to suddenly shift from being ahead of them to behind them in terms of what you've told the reader. You need to be secure in your place as a narrator, as a narrative voice, in relation to your characters and the actions that they're going through. Either they're going through it really wisely and they're ahead of you, or they're struggling with it just like you are, or that you're looking at them struggling with it and you're feeling a bit wise. That's how the reader's going to feel. So it's important to bear that in mind whenever you're thinking about what's the best point of view with which to tell a story. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, subscribe and follow, and see you next time.